Happy Wednesday, everyone. How's it going? It's an interesting week. Last week of November here, we're coming into U.S. Thanksgiving. So there's lots to be grateful for. And there's lots of opportunity ahead. And that's why we want to talk with Simon Dyakowski here, who's a friend as well as a very smart individual with great experience. He's a CEO, a president, CEO, and director over at Aztec Minerals. He's got an MBA, CFA. He's been an analyst. He's worked on the sales side of things as well as Salmon Partners at Lead Financial. You name it. He's got lots of experience with the TSX. And we want to kind of pick his brain, about a number of things: precious metals, what safe jurisdictions look like, a little bit about Arizona. What do you think 2025 is going to look like? The economy, you name it, all these things under the greater umbrella of why Aztec is digging for gold and looking for gold in Arizona. So we want to kind of chat with people to get their sense of how they got into business, what led them here, what their project's looking like now, and what the future is. And let's just start in with how's it going, Simon? How's your day starting?
Hey, thanks a lot for having me on, Andrew. It's a good day. It's Wednesday, it's Wednesday, my dudes, for those that are familiar with the meme.
Yes.
And it's a quiet week. I guess, the Americans are getting ready for their big celebration tomorrow and Friday. So yeah, it's a good time to sit down with you and have a chat. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and we're gonna just kind of go with the flow here. We'll roll in and out of, like, you've had great results from your projects in Arizona, and just kind of like weave in like kind of stories from like how you got started, what led you here. Because once again, we like to highlight people that have got specific skill sets and lots of experience. I mean, bringing an MBA and a CFA to a small, one would call a smaller sector, is pretty intense. It's pretty great. And I think we need to highlight more of that, of the level of expertise and technical ability as well as financial acumen. And from your experience, I mean, you've been in the side for about 12 years or so. What do you think right now looks like heading into 2025?
Yeah. Look, great questions. And so I've been in the business for a while now. Really got into it because family history in it. My dad's a geologist. His dad was the director of a bunch of public companies back in the 60s and 70s. My uncle's been involved in junior equities in Vancouver for a long time. So I've got the CFA MBA and all the education, but really, as you point out, you don't exactly need that to be involved in junior mining. So I kind of got dragged back to Howe Street, if you will, after a career in more traditional finance that I started after I finished university back in 2008, actually. So my career really started in 2008. I had some summer jobs, when I was in college, but really my first real job was Salmon Partners. I think I started on like June. I remember this date. It was June 22nd, 2008, and I think the TSX hit its all-time then high on that day, and it was kind of a funny time because we were obviously nobody had a crystal ball in June of 2008, but we know what happened in September of 2008.
Yes.
And it was weird because, like, in 2007 you had this mortgage meltdown in the States, and you had like Countrywide go under, and you had these kind of wild gyrations in the stock market, and nobody was really sure if it was over yet. And I remember in 2008, in the spring, I think some people kind of thought, hey, yeah, that was weird, like we're back on track. And little did they know that the whole thing was about to blow up. So my entire view of the markets is like deeply impacted by that. Like, am I
The
going to have a
drama.
job
Yeah.
next month because the market's crashing? Which is
Yes.
probably bad, because I've been I've been a little bit that's just ingrained in my brain. And I've probably missed out on a lot of the good markets over the last 10 years, because I'm always, I'm a bit of a perma bear, unfortunately. I'll admit it. I read a lot of Zero Hedge,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at the negatives, but you have to be optimistic in the exploration business. So it's a bit of a conundrum there. But anyway, so yeah, I've been in these juniors forever, really, and I had real jobs before. Now I run a couple juniors, and Aztec's been a great great company to come into. I got involved in it through really a legend of the mining industry, the late great Bradford Cook, who I met. I met him many times over the years, but had an opportunity to work for him on Aztec about 5 years ago now, and helped him raise some money and get the story kind of reignited, and we did that. We've raised well over $10 million now, and we put that money to work, I think, very effectively in adding value to the enterprise. We've drilled 6 times, over the past 5 years since I've been involved, and we've had pretty good results on every drill program at both of our projects. So, the one thing that's been missing is that real bull market. I think that that everybody remembers. Everybody remembers a bull market, but there have been so many of them over the last 6 decades in this sector, that I think that's what keeps me engaged, is that it's going to come back, and we're getting pretty close now, I think, and obviously the most recent memorable one, I think, for me, is the 2009, 10, 11 market that we had, which was unbelievable, and it kind of emerged out of the fear of the meltdown in 2008-9, and then a lot of people made huge amounts of money in the mining junior exploration sector then. So I think I'm really looking forward to that happening again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny too, because the mindset thing, I'm living in a permanent equilibrium of FOMO, like gaslighting between like different stocks going up, different sectors going up, and mixed messaging about how this is the best economy ever, when you're like, that's not what the data is saying. And also being in a junior market where like gold and silver, they've pulled back a bit now, but have gone through the roof. And yet, some of the producers did very well last year, but not trickling down to any juniors, and just left going, scratch your head, what's going on? And it's funny too, and I'll just kind of wrap this up, just as you remind me something of when I basically started at Merrill Lynch way back when, during the pets.com debacle and the first internet meltdown. I was hired in like 7 or 8 months just before that meltdown. So I too went into a market of like tentative, like, oh wait, this is like very exciting, but at the same time, this seems really hot. So I developed a bit of a mindset too of like poo, like where you're like excited but also nervous from what you're seeing, and so it's interesting that we share that as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's it's something that you can never shake, really, because it's like, it's funny. I see all these articles where people talk about the generation of investors that have never seen a real meltdown, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. That's real,
Yes.
Right? There's so many Gen Z and younger millennials that have no concept of the business cycle or the credit cycle or the stock cycle. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's permanently gone away. I don't know, right? But I somehow don't think so. But and yeah, like the underperformance of the equities it's pretty interesting too, right? I mean, who knows, right? We're veering into forward-looking statements and speculation, but maybe maybe Mr. Market is telling us that something's not all right.
Yes.
And maybe maybe there is some action that happens next year that we'll look back on and think, oh well, that was obvious, but right now, who knows?
And it's tough. No one wants to be like crapping on people's parade, but I mean, the U.S. market's made up of generally 7 stocks, those magnificent 7. They all got well funded out of the latest administration. They've got it funded through all sorts of administrations. They've also have huge cash flow. They just buy their stock back. That helps. And giant ETFs, whether it's BlackRock, State Street, you name it. They're not buying too much other than the obvious, what they just tend to buy. Like they just buy all the same stuff. So money flows into the same stuff. And they couldn't even put it into the mining sector even if they wanted to, because it's like such huge sums of money they need to place. So we've got, I would say, a lot of restructuring that needs to get done, especially to find that reality of, listen, the markets are inefficient right now. There's a gap. There's mixed signals. And sooner or later, people are going to wake up to that, and they're going to start paying attention again to a lot of these stories. And, people, there are people on the side that are sick of hearing that to death. But like you said, when these good markets happen, they come fast, and it's shocking, and it's made plenty a millionaire out there that can survive a decade without another one happening.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like the 80-20 rule, right? Like 80% of the time you're grinding
Yeah.
flat or lower and just hating being in the market. And then
Yeah.
and then you have the 20% that's like new paradigm. This is easy, but yeah, you miss it. You miss it if you're not positioned, right? Like, and I experienced that like firsthand myself in my career. In 2013, I kind of had to tap out for a few years and get a real job. I was a broker,
Yeah.
working on junior mining stuff, and I really loved that, right? But I couldn't, I couldn't do it. I couldn't pay the bills. It was,
Yeah.
2013, 15, or 13 to 15 were horrendous, right? They were so bad, way worse in the last couple of years. So I had to leave, and then I missed 2016, and that's when there was 6 to 9 months of an awesome market. But
Yeah.
that's just what happens, right? So I think staying in these things is pretty wise. Obviously, I'm not an investment advisor licensed anymore, so definitely consult professionals on this. But I think sticking around when things look frustrating is obviously be prudent. Don't fall for obvious things that won't work. But
Yeah.
if you're invested in good quality companies that have good assets with advancement in the commodities that have a good macro outlook, copper, gold, silver. You will hit those times when you 10 bag and 20 bag.
Yeah. There's like it seems like there's a pent up value that's stored that people go, fundamentally this should be doing this, or if you look at the way global supply chains are working, this is what's going to happen. Whether it's tariffs, the US is looking to insulate a bit more, especially with Trump coming in. There's going to be changes in supply chains. This should obviously happen. And then we're left going, why isn't it happening? I think, like you said, that stored up energy and that value is there. It's kind of trading like a private equity rather than it's trading like an actual public one. And when it just gaps, it just goes boom. When people start to realize and they start going, wait, I need to be looking at some other, I've had some wins over here. I maybe need to, start putting some of this money into, more stable foundational type of plays, especially when we're coming into a Trump 4 years that I think is going to be pretty strong for natural resources in general. It's obviously going to be very strong for anything energy related. And when I say energy, that is obviously oil and gas, but it includes all the energy metals, the copper, the electrification, because Elon Musk is whispering in his ear, and also Trump, he created the critical metals list. All that, I don't see any fundamental change in that narrative happening. What do you see?
Yeah, look, I'm optimistic on America. No, I'm not as optimistic though, maybe as some of the real cheerleaders
Yeah.
for MAGA. But yeah, like obviously Trump and Elon are businessmen first and foremost, which is fantastic. I mean, anytime that you have a shift from real like kind of swampy bureaucrats into greedy kind of money guys,
Yeah.
it's going to be better, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like he's whispering in his ear for electrification. I don't know, right? Like, but
Yeah.
but I think the really good thing is that he loves debt, right? He loves borrowing money. He's built a real estate empire on sketchy loans, and I don't know, total speculation, but I just don't think that they have the stomach for the real cycle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's good and bad. Like, I mean, ultimately, I think it would be better if we had, a kind of a more Austrian economics based society, where you let
Sure.
the credit cycle play out. But I just don't think the US public has the stomach for that. So they'll make some things better and easier. Like, obviously, we're in Arizona, so I expect, the mining industry to be a lot friendlier in Arizona for Aztec. But, in general, like commerce should be easier there. Even for Mexico, like we have a project in Sonora, Mexico. I think Trump's going to be great for that because he's, if the one thing that he probably will do, even if he fails on everything else, is he is going to secure the border,
Yeah.
and he's going to try to take down, a bit of the narco state there, which is,
Yes.
you know, that's really a big thing down there. So if he succeeds on just one of his policy items, then that'll be good for the mining industry. And yeah,
Yeah.
like I think inflation's coming back, right?
Yeah.
So that's gonna, that'll provide, I think, a good tailwind for metals. Obviously industrial production will be, or industrial output, will be favored, right? Energy deregulation will probably be favored. As it relates to us being the northern neighbors in Canada,
Yeah.
I think, the tariffs, who knows what's going to happen there. I would think that the 25% tariff on $4 billion or 4 million barrels a day of oil supply. I mean, that's not good for them.
No.
But our energy industry is in such a disarray right now. It's quite frankly, it's embarrassing that what
Yes.
they talk about here. Energy production caps. So maybe this is just a sort of a shot across the bow to say to the incoming administration here, like, you guys are, effed, and
Yeah.
why don't you free up some of your oil? Let us build the pipelines. The only way we're ever going to save our purchasing power in Canada is by deregulating the oil industry. That would likely benefit the US because it's, it solidifies their kind of safe supply, right? If you want to use
Yeah.
the parlance there, the safe
Yeah.
supply of oil, and that'll probably bail us out up here in
Yes.
terms of our loony. So yeah, I don't know if that's a good synopsis of my view on Trump or
No, it's great.
I think it's good. Yeah.
No, I think it's great to have that kind of mixed reaction where I also think there's lots of good things, but I'm under no illusions that, when you go into that, the really off the scale that, oh, everything's going to get fixed. It's not. It couldn't. Even if there was an incredible plan, 4 years isn't very long. And could they come up with something? Sure. Something's going to happen. It's going to be interesting, no matter whatever is come up. But that just makes a case for precious metals to be even stronger. Like during chaos, whenever, and even implementing a new plan, people are going to go, I don't know if this is going to work. Where are you going to go? What's your flight to safety? And if it works out and it's great. In 4 years, maybe we get a 4-year run, precious metals. Maybe they come up with a CBDC, maybe this, maybe that. This is all speculation, but I just see that the gold and silver and the copper narrative is always there. It just looks strong for the next couple of years, at least.
Totally. And yeah, the copper narrative, I love copper. My other company has a copper mine, not in operation, but I'm not a, copper bear. But I think I'd prefer to get, like, when I talk about the outlook for copper, I like the term Dr. Copper, Dr. Copper PhD. Great Twitter follow, by the way, or X follow.
Yes.
That is tried, tested, and true. It's a leading indicator on the economy, right? Like, forget about global warming narratives and electrification. I mean, that's nonsense. Well, I'll let me clarify.
Yeah.
Global warming is nonsense. It's a fraud. It's not true in any way, shape, or form. I hope I'm allowed to say that.
You can share
But
whatever you want.
but copper is a key input in um, economic growth. I mean, every new building, every house needs a lot of copper, right? And that's never going to change because it conducts electricity. That's just, it's basic science if you want to use the the term, the science.
Yeah.
So, forcing everyone to an electric car, I mean, that's not going to happen. Trump doesn't
No.
want that. Nobody wants that. Nobody buys them. I mean, even over in Europe, you go talk to the average guy on the street in Germany, and you'd think that they're all green over there, but they're not. They're driving around in diesel Volkswagens, diesel Porsches, diesel whatever. Like, it's way more convenient to go to a gas station and fill up with diesel or
Yeah.
petrol or gasoline than it is to plug in your car. So I prefer to take the macro conversation away from electrification because that's such an aspirational kind of a
Yes.
centrally planned goal.
Yeah.
And Trump is moving away from central planning, right? He is a individualist at at his very core,
Yeah.
and that's ideal, right? Let people decide what they want to do with their money, with everything on their own, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a pretty good way of like keeping the peace, right? You do
Yeah.
you, I'll do what I want, and I don't want to be peer pressured into buying, an
Yes.
electric car because it's going to save the whales. Like, give me a break. So
No.
anyway, so that's all changing. But copper has always had this relationship with just big economic growth, and I remember this at Solomon Partners because when I started there, it was at the tail end of the 2005, 6, 7 running copper, which was epic. Right, it went from 67 cents a pound to like almost $4 really quickly in the 2000s, and a lot of that was China, the China story, gobbling up whatever they could in terms of natural resources. But the narrative that we had then was you need to own copper because of the boom in the US housing market, right? Which is kind of funny because that was, I don't know if you remember that, but that was the narrative. I remember
Yeah.
seeing in research notes, every new home in the US needs 4,000 pounds of copper, something like that.
Yeah.
And now there's a new narrative, right? But the reality is it's not neither of those things. It's economic growth drives demand for metals that conduct electricity
Yeah.
because we use electricity in everything we do, regardless of
Any transition. Yeah.
trend. Yeah, I mean, that's my take. I'm very passionate on that because I think
Yeah.
the narrative is kind of it's not needed, right? And
Yes.
it's I think it's a little divisive, like
Yeah.
it's a lot of just telling people what's going to happen. You've got no say in this. Markets don't work like that, right? That they're
Yeah.
I'm a bottom up kind of guy, right? Like,
Yes.
that's the right kind of analysis. Just what are people doing? How are they consuming? And figure it out from there. Not going the other way, which is, starting at the top and telling everybody what's good for them and how it's going to be.
It doesn't work, and I mean, it was worth a shot. We see that those types that are more authoritarian in nature gave it a shot. They wanted to see, could we convince the U.S. to do it? That population, which is not really in for that, and at least half of them said, absolutely not. You're not going to force me or tell me what to do, whatever narrative you have.
Yeah, and what about this? How about just the evidence of the copper price? It's like, there's been this narrative is not new, right? It's just it's old now, and the copper price is $4, right? And you go back on YouTube over the last like probably 6 years, right? How many energy metals or copper stories have been marketed on this imminent transition? And it's like, guys, like I'm more inclined to market companies based off the merits of their project, right? Like that at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? You can make a little bit of a quick flip on, something that's hot, flavor of the day, but that's not a way to build a business or to have a big
no, good
return.
point.
You need a good project, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's copper or nickel or gold, silver, zinc, whatever. That's really the most important thing is the project, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay, that's great because I think it's important to remind people of the aspirational versus pragmatism, and we talk about it all the time. We say, listen, if the market was saying that this narrative was true, and if politicians were really this fervent about wanting to do this, the amount of money flowing into mining would be obvious. It would have happened. Maybe it will come, and maybe that narrative will play out. But since I've been involved for coming up on 7-8 years, and I kind of like that narrative, and it's aspirational, and this should happen. It hasn't. So there's either a disconnect between that story of this transition, because the amount of metals needed is staggering. And we've made a little dent when you see like the trillions that have been spent. It's been a little bit of a transition. It's not major by any stretch of the imagination. And it would take a lot more to attempt to do. And I think that pragmatism as well is required, and that it's fine to be aspirational, have this idea of what the future might hold, whether it's with AI, with a crypto, or with this or that. It's fun, it's interesting, robotics, you name it. But at the same time, okay, where are you going to invest that dollar though? Because you can't just willy-nilly say, I'll just throw it into some junior mining company and go from there.
Yeah. But just maybe one point on that.
Yeah.
Just to banter here, okay? So
yeah, we love it.
like the transition, that's such an interesting term, because what
Yes.
they're really saying is that there are some communists, some globalists that want to dismantle the chemical industry,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of the demand for copper is in this aspirational model is derived from building like transmission capacity and things like that. And you know, it's kind of a very dangerous thing, in my opinion, because we already have an energy infrastructure that exists across the globe, which is a miracle of nature, a god-given gift of taking a hydrocarbon molecule from, some swamp north of Edmonton, and ripping it down to like Louisiana and turning it into jet fuel. Like that is
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's worth like literally trillions of dollars. And then you've got these interest groups that are saying that, oh, that's bad because, supposedly this is going to make the ice caps melt, right? Which
Yeah.
there's no scientific evidence of whatsoever. It's totally a spurious correlation that they're milking. But so what they're suggesting is we're going to redistribute wealth and
Yes.
influence around the world in order to make this happen, to transition to away from hydrocarbon to like whatever hydroelectric and energy, which is what would really happen. So first of all, that won't happen because it's completely outside of the realm of reality, right? Like no one's going to give up a very well established and efficient, the most efficient energy molecule is a hydrocarbon molecule, or
Yeah.
maybe uranium, but like let's
The
not get
cost of uranium to set up is pretty expensive. I mean, and
yes,
that's
yes,
fine.
but
Yeah.
it's already there and it's flowing, and
Yep.
it's and it's that's capitalism, right? That is efficiency. So what driving the demand for copper going forward, I think, is going to be getting away from the energy transition narrative and just getting into like, hey, let's fuel our cars and our lives with the cheapest source of fuel possible,
Yeah.
hydrocarbons. And then that will enable us to grow our businesses, to make new cities, to build new houses. People can upgrade their lives a little bit, get out of the apartment, get a townhouse, go from the townhouse, buy a house, build a new suburb somewhere. Like this is America, right? Like let's
Yeah.
get suburbia going again, right? Like let's reverse this trend of moving into the cities. Let everybody go out, build new cities. Like how is this place built, right? It's mill
Yeah.
towns, it's town, it's there's got to be a reason for people to be where they are. That's real organic economic growth, not schemes to basically downgrade everybody's life to save the what is it, 419 ppm of CO2 in the atmosphere, which is a gaseous state that's 100 kilometers high. Forget it, right? We need to support free enterprise and honesty,
Yeah.
and basically that will drive the demand for metals, is getting all of this nonsense out of the way, and copper will do extremely well until the market mechanism corrects it, right? It gets too expensive and then it corrects and there's a restocking rally, and let's get back into some cycles, because in our industry we make money in the cycles, right? We get crushed when it turns the wrong way, and
Yeah.
we get rich when it turns the right way. And that's I think what's been really lacking, actually. We're talking about why has it been so long that we've had a good run. Well, the last good run that we had in 2009, the real reason for it was the credit market seized up in '08. Everybody stopped buying everything. They freaked out. And then the world didn't end. Plunge protection team came out,
Yep.
and what happened next was there was a restocking rally. Copper ripped from 220 to 460, right?
Yeah.
Gold went from 900 to 1900. Silver went from 12 to 50, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
that's what we need, right? We don't for us, this is what we need, and I think this is what's coming, and hopefully this is what Trump and Elon and the team RFK, Vivek, Pierre Polyev, all these
Yeah.
politicos, hopefully they know that, and they stop this kind of pay for play, top down transition that is very, very tired story.
Yes. No, I love the perspective too. I mean, yeah, it is a tired story. I mean, I get tired of talking about it too, because you go, once again, I love the narrative. I love the aspirational idea of it, but we also at the same time are happy to point out, well, wait a second. how come Mike Carney is saying no more oil and gas for Alberta, but I'm going to go sit on the board of a West African or an African oil and gas energy conglomerate? They're allowed to do it. You're just not allowed to do it. You go, wait. So some places are allowed to use coal and oil and gas, and others can't. Wait, how does that work? So there's lots of flaws in this idea that they have. They go, well, no, just not Alberta. They're bad people.
Yeah, isn't it funny, right? If you're
Yeah.
if you're an insider, then it doesn't matter. And you know, they justify it so many different ways. They dress it up, you know, whatever way they need to. But at the end of the day, it's pretty dishonest. And I think, you know, most people, you know, just judging by the shift in tone on X, you know, and
Yeah.
in on the internet, like especially like Gen Z, millennials, like I don't know, if you don't watch the news anymore,
Yes.
I think you're gonna have a hard time really falling for this stuff going forward. So I'm very optimistic that we're gonna be in a better world here over the next few years, but we'll see if there's a bit of a credit event in between to sort of clear the decks as well.
And before we move on, we always challenge people. Listen, go look into stuff. Like, you don't have to believe me. You don't have to believe Simon. The great part about a show like this is that we encourage people. If you have interest, send me a message. I don't mind. I can send you links to all sorts of stuff. But go challenge your own thoughts and ideas yourself. The biggest issue, and what I would say in the last 4 or 5 years especially, was a narrative of don't critically think. Don't go look for yourself. Don't do research. Just listen to this expert. They know what they're talking about. You go, no. That's the worst. That's the worst life experience one could possibly have, and not a good model for moving forward. Is that some expert can bring you an idea, and you might say, "Oh, is that true?" Well, then follow that up with, "Go look into it." And then you'll get excited about something, and especially in our market, you'll go, "Oh, I want to know more about this, and I want to know more about how things work." That's what we need a lot more overall, culturally, socially, in society, is the questioning of things, and that's what we're seeing. Is the response I see, like kind of culturally, socially, is that people that encourage people to go find out. That's the narrative that we should be following.
Yeah, totally. But people are, you know, it's just human nature to find out when you need to. And I think
Yeah.
now people need to find out. And I made a prediction a few years ago. I was debating this. Remember the CERB during the pandemic or whatever?
Yep.
They were giving out, I don't know, what was it, $2,000 a month or something. And I thought, you know, this is going to work for a couple years until a McDonald's meal costs $25, right?
Yes.
And then the people taking the free money are going to say, wait a minute, this is, you know, there's diminishing returns to this. I'm not feeling as rich as I was when I was getting it when it started. And so I think that's totally happened, right? They printed all this money, they gave it out, you know, most of it they gave to themselves, let's be honest. And then they gave a little dribble out to the plebs. And, you know, and it doesn't work anymore, right? You know, $2,000 a month, who cares, right? I mean, if it worked in 2020, right? When everybody was locked in their basement, you know, had a little side hustle, you know, whatever they were doing, you know, graphic design on the internet, you know, work from their basement, smoking a
Making
little
NFTs.
weed, you know, getting DoorDash. But now it's like, you know, now they have to pay $5,000 a month for a 1-bedroom apartment. And it's like, wait a minute, like something's up here. And they're getting a little bit inquisitive, I think, and they're Googling. And it's funny, you mentioned the word experts. I find that to be just the most comical word, right? Like,
I know.
Experts say, but this is your advice, I think, is very sound. If anybody still has a propensity to follow, you know, the News Inc., you know, whatever they choose, you know, Globe and Mail, Global News, or any of these sort of mainstream outlets in Canada, it's funny that all articles are written in a very kind of dumbed down, similar manner, and they love to use the words the experts say, you know, experts say you need to do this, or experts. Just Google the name of the expert, figure out where they work, right?
Yes.
Like, for sure they're going to be like, you know, adjunct professor of sociology at UVic, or like they're all on the take from us. Basically, we're getting absolutely destroyed by people taking our money, right? In the form of taxation, totally corrupt. And I think it should end, because it's blatant now. And then another one I would suggest, just for fun here, is Google a firm called like Hill and Knowlton Strategies. This is like kind of a global consultancy, and a big portion of their business is called PR, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically, for those that aren't familiar, every newspaper, news outlet, Reuters, AP, Canadian Press, or Post Media, they have a bunch of journalists on staff, right? And you ever wonder how they get their story ideas?
Yeah.
It's not like Spider-Man, Peter Parker, up
Yeah.
there, like trying to get a good scoop on something. That's
No,
how it was back in the day. They're just fed stories from PR agents, and then
that's it.
but the
Yep.
PR agents are hired by, it doesn't, forget the topic. Let's be agnostic.
Yeah.
But it'll be like, the Realtors Association of Canada. They want to have
Yes.
a story positively portraying something, or pharma, right?
Yeah.
Or some teachers union, or port workers union. But it's totally opaque, right? Because in our business, in the stock market, which is like extremely regulated, if we pay somebody to do it, like an interview or whatever, we got to do a big disclosure to the venture exchange, and everybody's got to know, that it's biased because somebody was paid, and that's fine, right? I mean, that's very transparent.
Yeah.
But in the media, they don't have to do that. They don't have to
No.
say, like, sometimes they do if it's like, blatantly obvious, they'll say it's sponsored content, but they don't actually have to disclose. The
No.
journalist doesn't have to say who gave them the idea. And a lot of times the ideas come with like prescribed talking points. And I
Yes.
was forwarded an email once, and I won't name names, but it was absolutely shocking. It was like they forgot to delete the forward part. And it was it was a real estate group to a real estate commentator with suggested narratives, and then they
Yes.
forwarded on to like a news magazine in Vancouver, and the guy was like, I'm not going to comment on this because
Yeah.
I forgot to delete like the source of this idea. Anyways, it's all pretty wild, and hopefully
Yeah.
everybody wakes up and realize that a lot of this is just not the way it seems.
No, and PR companies, I mean, I know I've taken PR courses years ago because I was curious about it. They often write a lot of the journalist stories. They just forward them on and they get printed.
Yeah, well, see, that's right. That
That's
was this one. It was like
Yep.
a skeleton of an article, and all you had
Yep.
to do was kind of like, it's copying your friend's homework, right? You
Yes.
just change the words around and hand it into the teacher. It's it's pretty
That's it.
dishonest.
And if
Yeah.
you work at a mainstream media and you have to come up with an article a day, you just go find a source from some other article off in Wall Street Journal, boom, rewrite it, and boom, spit it out. Who's your source? It's the same source as them.
Yeah,
And just reprint it. That's not a hard job. It's not. Now, I know we're I'm not a big fan of most mainstream news. That's not a surprise, but I don't want to be too harsh on them. I know there are real journalists out there. You can find them too. There's tons of them actually, but you're not seeing them all the time. You have to go find them, and they're on X or they're on YouTube, and they're about 5 to 10 times bigger than any of these ones that you're seeing on mainstream news. And that's also the market telling people something.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that was the big thing of the election, was I think for the first time that they've totally lost their grip on the narrative. You had, basically, it was kind of the podcast election, right? I mean,
Yes.
I got rid of my TV a couple years ago. I haven't, and I used to watch, like, I hate to admit it, I would religiously watch Fox. I would 6 o'clock, Tucker Carlson tonight, right? That's all I would watch. What's Tucker got to say? They fired him, and I said, forget it. I'm not watching TV ever again. And so I didn't watch any election coverage at all, except for like, people would forward me these like hilarious podcasts, like Theo Vaughn and I don't even really follow these guys, but I'm like, Nelk boys, and it's pretty funny. And they were pretty real, right? Like, they're just sitting there for like 2 hours, no agenda. These guys are just either comedians or bros or whatever, and just kind of like shooting the shit with these politicians, and you actually figured out what they were really about, and that's a really healthy thing, I think. And it's not just prescribed talking points that have been fed to you by whoever your corporate sponsor is for that particular issue.
Yes, true. Okay, now we're going to take a bit of a break because I want to test something out, but I'm going to leave you with this thought too to think about over the next minute or two. Have you heard of this? Is it Judy Shelton? She wrote the book Good as Gold. She's a economic advisor to President Trump, but she wrote this book. She's actually an advocate for returning to the gold standard. She's very critical of the Federal Reserve. I think just like a week ago, she was on Fox and she's talking about, hey, listen, I'm not part of the end of the Fed, although I'm extremely critical of the Fed. My question, I guess, is she is an economic advisor that he tried to put on the Federal Reserve. She got shot down, I think, 50 to 47. But, she's going to have a role, I think, moving forward. And I'm not suggesting we're going back to a gold standard. But with her and then with Elon there, kind of maybe think over the next minute or two while we take a little bit of a break, if that means anything, and then we'll flow right back into gold and silver and Arizona and why you like Arizona, what's there, and then specifically, like you said before, you got to look at the project, you look at the assays, look at the numbers and the data to see what someone's got, and we'll get into some of that of what you've got there at Aztec. But in the meantime, we want to take a bit of a break here because this is the time of giving. So, Adam, we're going into Thanksgiving here in the U.S. It's not Black Friday where lots of deals. But hey, listen, we also need to think about other people. So I have a friend actually, and this was my old grade school friend back from St. Catharines. We lived on the same street on Westgate Park, and he works at Blue Door, and this is a charity, and that's out in Ontario. And he is the CEO of this Blue Door charity group, and they do incredible things. So maybe Adam, let's play that little video. Oh, well, wait, we'll talk about this first. We'll show. There's Mike right there. Plenty of great work that they're doing there. They've got a bunch of programs like between emergency housing, transitional housing, seasonal housing, housing support, health support, employment support. They help people from the ground up to support them out east. And once again, this is Toronto kind of region. I'd love it if it went all across Canada. But we wanted to give a shout out to him because this is someone who's doing incredible work, really helping the community, helping Canadians, and especially coming into Christmas. There's a way that you can donate. And we want, to be considerate of other people. I usually tend to focus on like literally local, like where I'm close to, but really he is kind of local. I grew up with them, and I grew up in Ontario, and these are Canadians and they need help. And I love anybody who's willing to dedicate their life, which he's done, to this goal and this cause. And it's pretty amazing. So maybe we'll show a little bit of this video that they have here, Adam. And let me make clear, this is not a sponsor of the show at any event, or neither is Simon, but I just wanted to take everyone's time to kind of throw out take a peek at these guys here, bluedoor.ca.
I discovered Construct from a parole officer. Actually, it was a very colorful journey. Hi, my name is Barrington Grant. I come from a little shady background. Got myself in trouble with the law, so I had problems getting jobs.
Construct is an 8-week full-time skilled trades training program that provides hands-on training and in-class learning to vulnerable individuals with experience to obtain a full-time, meaningful career in the construction and trades industry. Throughout the 8 weeks, participants receive a variety of certifications, things like WMIS, workplace health and safety, working at heights, first aid and CPR, and more.
For me, it started off a little bit nervous because you're meeting new people and you don't know what to expect in the program, but you're still going in there with the objective to figure out the future.
It's amazing to see the growth and the difference in their confidence and their skills from week 1 compared to week 8. It's really amazing seeing them.
So we'll stop there just because it's about a 3-minute long video, but it's a great video. We're happy to send it along. Check out bluedoor.ca. There's lots of ways that you can help and donate, not only with your time, but with volunteering and helping them out. Anyways, I wanted to give that a shout out, and I got permission from Michael as well to do that. It's a time of giving and time to think of others. And I think this is a great one that we support. I did last year because I think Michael also does this. He stays out on the streets overnight on the coldest night of the year. I believe it's in February. Oh, I should have confirmed that, but that's coming up in February too. Anyways, bluedoor.ca, take a peek at them. We love what Mike's doing, and congratulations on all the hard work that he's done. We're back to you, Simon. How are you? Left you there for a little bit there, but what are your thoughts there with this Judy Shenton, and any thoughts, or what's your thought?
Yeah, look, I'm by no means an expert on Judy. I would encourage though everybody who's on X to check out. There's a guy in Vancouver here, Gold Telegraph, who interviewed Judy on X a couple weeks ago. Is a young interviewer, Alex Deleuze, and
All right.
he had a very expansive conversation with her, and I think it's worth watching. But I'm obviously aware of her to a certain extent, and the relationship with the with the old Trump regime and now the new one. So it is very encouraging that there are sound money advocates in his orbit. I obviously would tend to agree with her view on the Federal Reserve System and the need for some order in the monetary policy in the U.S. and some real backing for it. In terms of making any guesses on if they're going to actually do that,
Yeah.
I will make a guess. I somehow kind of doubt it. I mean, it is it's a great idea, and it should be like, I mean, it should have been the gold window should have been defended, and but these are issues of 50 plus years ago, and I just
Yeah.
don't think that the American consumer has hit the tipping point of pain, really,
Yes.
to the point where they want to see price stability. Like, everybody kind of wants to see it. I mean, it's annoying that everything gets more expensive, but
Yeah.
I just don't think it's hit the kind of like 51-49 threshold. I just still think there's too many powerful and wealthy people that still benefit from the current system, that they'll find a way to kick it down the road a little bit longer. But hey, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to guess here, and if I was wrong, I probably wouldn't be super into the gold exploration business, because that'd probably be negative for precious metals. I mean, yeah, an immediate revaluation of like $80,000 to reestablish gold,
Yes.
fine, but that's not going to happen. We know that.
Yeah.
Um, and sound monetary policy, would definitely lessen the need for protecting yourself with hard assets. So, maybe one day, but
Yeah.
I think not in the next few years. Hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, and that's why we're busy drilling off a gold silver deposit in Arizona.
Great. So tell us, okay, so what do you like about Arizona? What do you not like? And I mean, I'll say I like Arizona. I like a lot of projects that are in Arizona. We've got some big ones between, was it Resolute? And then you've got that Taylor deposit from South 32. South 32 is going forward. That's a note that's got the blessing. And let me put this around also too, like a safer jurisdiction. And just, I mentioned Resolute there, and you think of unsafe, the Mali situation with the Barrick employees. Also, they held hostage the CEO of Resolute there for $160 million. Essentially, that's what they've done. Then they let him go in Mali, but they've held 4 more executives now from Barrick until they pay up. That kind of gives a snapshot when people want to talk about, oh, where are you mining?
Yeah. No, good. So let me just start with what I don't like about Arizona.
Yeah.
Which is nothing. I love Arizona. I mean, it's one of my favorite places in the world, and I'm going there in a couple weeks with my family. We're gonna hang out there. We're gonna go look at the mine, and it's a fantastic state. I mean, I don't know if any of the viewers haven't been to Arizona, but I highly recommend it. It's proper America. Big giant highways, enterprise, great golf, good climate, nice people, good food. It's awesome. Arizona's great. And then in terms of a mining jurisdiction, which is probably what you were asking about, it's good if you're on private land. I mean, and that's kind of regardless of if it's Dems or Republicans in power, taking their turn or whatever, right? If you want to be
Yeah.
if you're on public land, then you got to be a little bit more concerned about who's in charge of the federal government. Obviously, like the BLM, like the Bureau of Land Management. I guess it's a political appointee that heads that up. So if it's a left-wing government, they're going to be, they're going to put up a lot of roadblocks for permitting and things like that. It's just the way those people are. And if it's Team Trump, America First, you're going to get probably a bit of a more business-friendly approach to managing public lands. But all of that doesn't matter for us at Aztec, because we own the land that we are exploring on. So we have these old mining patents, and this dates back like 100 years plus, where if you worked claims sufficiently, they would give you title to the land, surface, mineral, and water. So it's ideal. So most of our project in Arizona is privately owned land, owned by us, or owned by our joint venture, of which we own 77.7% interest in. So that's fantastic. That just really eliminates a whole level of bureaucracy when it comes to permitting.
Yes.
And then, more importantly is the social license. And that is, driven by the locals. Do they like mining? Do they want mining? Do they, what's their kind of take? And so I like answering this question because there are a lot of old mining villages in Arizona and Nevada and California and places like that. Kind of quaint little towns that have been done up for little coffee shops and art studios, and they definitely don't like mining, right?
No. Yeah.
They're not interested in blasting and trucks and things like that. They just want to hang out. They want to have a soy latte and they want to just chill, right? But
Yeah.
but Tombstone is definitely not like that. So just I'd encourage everybody that has a chance, if you're in Southern Arizona on a holiday, weather's not good, whatever, you're in Scottsdale, go drive down to Tombstone, check it out. It's really cool. It's where Wyatt Earp and Doc
Yes.
Holliday took care of the Cowboys, right? And all that happened like within a stone's throw of our project. Like literally,
How-
the town exists because of our project. Or
How far a drive is it to Tombstone?
It's like 2.5 hours from Phoenix Airport.
Perfect.
An hour, like 50 minutes from Tucson.
Yep.
And it's cool. It's all free. They dress up in character every day.
Yes.
They reenact the gunfight every day at 1:00. And anybody who's been to like Barkerville, it's kind of a similar experience, except it's not run by the government. It's just owned by private citizens. And you can eat at the Crystal Palace. They have great food there. The Longhorn Saloon, super friendly staff. And Tombstone is it's a tourist town.
Yeah.
With dirt roads. There's 2 gun stores. If you want to
I love it.
exercise, if you want to exercise your Second Amendment right to defend yourself, something that Canada should really look at, but you can do that there. And the newest business in town, which is less relevant now, but was super relevant a year ago, was the Trump store. So there's this guy, he has this store. It's called the Trump store, and he's got all these flags, and you can go and buy T-shirts and stickers. And so I got a hilarious sticker there. It says "Let's go Brandon." If anybody remembers the NASCAR race.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyways, that's the vibe of Tombstone. So it's not coffee shops and art studios and ceramics, nothing like that. Nothing wrong with that stuff. I like art, and coffee, but that's not the vibe there. It's kind of guns and Trump and cowboys and Indians, that kind of thing, right? It's awesome. So when it comes down to permitting a mine, and I should say all those businesses, and every time I go there, I ask everybody, like, hey, what do you think about mining? They're like, yeah, bring it back, because they had a big mine there in the 80s.
Yes.
And everybody was making way more money driving trucks and doing work in the mine than they were serving, Diet Coke and burger to hungry tourists, which is, that's important too, but it's not exactly, a high paying job. So hopefully that was a long-winded sort of insight into Tombstone. It's about as mining friendly as you're going to get. Cochise County, that's another one to Google. Very, very Republican, and excellent infrastructure. I mean, we've got paved roads right to site. We got water, power, workforce. We have 3 guys working for us there, securing the site, running a little gravel pit. Great guys, multi-generational family from Tombstone that works for us there. So it's about as good as it gets jurisdictionally, and even with a Democrat governor, we're still fine. It's great.
Yes. I love that explanation, because it visualizes for people the depth of and the rich history, like Tombstone. It's a great movie, by the way, as well. What a cool city! Like, especially when you've got kids to bring them, they can learn about the Wild West and everything else, and it kind of is still alive today, and they can get to see within a couple hours 2 very distinct different cultures within the U.S. that exist. Both are great, like very artistic, and the soy latte, and then the rugged, cowboy, kind of soil of the earth type of person, and we need all of that, to make things go. But it is so important because we have lots of people on here with Arizona properties that permitting, being on private land, that's a huge step. You're not putting enough. You're not leaving it up in the hands of someone else that they have a say on what can happen and what can't happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, sort of. I mean, a few people have a say for sure, but it's
I know,
less, and it's
yes.
more appropriate, really. I mean, quite frankly, it's just more following the rules properly and being a responsible operator than getting into a big ideological fist fight over whether people like mining or not, which is
Yes.
that's very wasteful, right? I mean, that's where you get sort of bigger ideas coming into play, and that stifles the investor's appetite to take a risk, and that's something that we're not particularly interested in at this property.
So tell me a bit about like some of the highlights of what you've got at Tombstone, and we're going to leave the Sonora property out because that's in Mexico. That's great as well. The Cervantes property is great, but we just spoke to another person about Mexico, Regency Silver. We think Mexico probably looks a lot more opportunistic or possible overall than I think people are worried about. I'll get your thoughts on that, but tell us first about Tombstone, some of the numbers so that people can get a sense as to what are you looking at here? What are you talking about?
Yeah. So what we've got is, just real quickly, we've got these historic high-grade underground silver mines. There's dozens of them around Tombstone, and we control most of them in our private claim group. And so these things were producing, small amounts, but very high grades from the 1800s to the 1940s. And ceased mining around World War II. And then, were never really looked at again until the 70s, when the gold and silver price spiked up during the inflationary wave of the 70s. And at that point, it became economic to open pit mine the mineralization near surface. So we've focused now on expanding that open pit model with oxide gold silver. So it's been very successful to date. We've drilled like 51 holes. They've all hit expansions of that open pit zone, and now we're drilling like big step outs, 500-600 meters to the west.
Nice.
And we're hoping to really just increase the scale of the open pit potential. And then ultimately we do have deep targets that are similar to Arizona Mining, now South 32's Taylor Hermosa project.
Yeah.
And that's where there's just another element of big upside, if we hit on those. But for now, over the next 3-4 months, if you look at our news, it's going to be about the drill results from Tombstone. And then can I answer the question about Mexico?
Yeah, of course, yes.
I agree with Bruce. He's very knowledgeable.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a good guy, and I think it's going to improve there. So I don't want to take away any thunder from his take.
Yeah.
And we have a project there that we're going to be active on next year, and I'm not worried. It's a lot of it's sentiment driven, and that you have to be very cognizant of that. But I think it's going to improve, and this whole Trump tariff thing, I think, is really, sharpening everybody's pencils north and south of the border. And Sonora is a massive exporter of autos,
yes,
and gold and silver to the world. So, the governor of Sonora, I don't think, wants to have his whole mining industry shut down because of whatever's really going on there with their politicians.
Yes. No. We wanted to kind of give a shout out to that second property because we like Sonora, we like Mexico. We were worried last year, and I think a lot of people were too. But once again, I think we keep on hearing that she's very pragmatic. I think we're going to find out very quickly. They haven't taken any massive action on any of the 100 points that were even kind of mentioned. So we're positive. I'm glad you're positive as well. But the Tombstone, I mean, this is really cool because the results that you'll have out over the next few months, this is the step outs, the 500-meter step out. So this is going to add tonnage, hopefully.
Well, I got to be very careful in how I describe this. So,
okay,
we are drilling a number of true step outs, which are 50, 70 meters away from the existing drill pattern.
Okay,
and then we're stepping out, in a sense, even further into a new target with some first pass drilling. And so my qualified person at VPX has just pointed out that we should clarify that the step outs, while they are stepping out, they're they're beyond just stepping out of an existing pattern. They're
Yes.
new targets, and not trying to comment on if they're good or bad or whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
yeah. Just there, if you'll see on the plan map that they're one of them's 700 meters away, one of them's 500, 400,
Cool.
300.
Yes.
It's not, you know what I mean. It's not just a systematic stepping out of a grid that far out. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
That'll come next. Yeah.
That'll come next. But I mean, but it's good because once again, when you get some great results initially, then it's exciting. But then the people go, oh, but we want tonnage. You go, so no one's ever happy unless you get both.
No, we're gonna make them happy. Yeah, you can see what I'm talking about there. The goal,
Yes.
we're gonna make everybody happy. Hopefully, if the model's correct, and hopefully everyone's happy, even shareholders of other mining deals in January, when we didn't really touch on this, but we've had a 35% move in the gold price year to date, and there hasn't been a lot of enthusiasm. However, the big caps have traded better. There have been a couple of early M&A deals.
Yep.
So I think we needed the correction, right? We needed the sell off, just to take a breather.
Yep.
But look, at the end of the day, I own a bunch of gold, silver, physical. It's gonna be we have to look 35,000 foot view of the market and recognize that, wow, we're in a great position here. Gold is rocking, right? Like, forget about the last 2 weeks, it's rocking. And I think January just psychologically brings optimism, and I think it'll help galvanize the bull market. And I think there's a chance that it kind of starts to trickle down, and that we have a good start to the year. Because I mean, I don't know. I don't think gold's going to drop down to 2,000 on January 3rd or whatever the first trading day is.
Yeah.
We're going to be. It's a great way to frame what's happened over the last year. The bigger concern I have is, why did gold go up 35%, right? And we'll find out eventually. And why did gold go up 35% in 2019?
Yes.
Well, we know why now, because of an illness, I guess, a flu season. But but we don't exactly know why gold has sniffed out something that massive investors like European central banks and wealthy families have piled into this stuff, or piled into it. Like let's it's crazy, the Bitcoin kind of enthusiasm. Everybody's excited about it's got a 1.8 trillion dollar market cap now. Well, that's great. That's huge. Don't get me wrong, massive. But the gold market cap's like 20 trillion.
Yes.
And it's gone up 35% on 20 trillion. That's like gone up 7 or 8 trillion dollars. Like, who bought that and why? Right? Like that's a lot more interesting to me than whatever the Tether Bitcoin carry trade is propping up US treasuries or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand.
It's a fun conversation, but yeah, it's fun. But they also have a budget like I would argue 100 times larger than any World Gold Council is going to spend on advertising.
Totally. But like, $7 trillion of market cap in US dollar terms for gold. Like, come on, guys. Like, let's not forget that isn't a prediction that just happened. Over 12 months. Like, let's get real here. And it wasn't all driven by Trump or whatever war that you want to point to. There's somebody just stacking this stuff, and that's good. That's good for us. This, like, everything that every crazy gold bug has told you over the last 15 years is like literally happening in real time. So, get ready and hopefully have a few shares in across the board.
Yes. And like you said, nothing has changed other than maybe there's talking points. But my argument is, well, what do you think next year will look like? Well, it'll probably be a continuation. There's people take money, they'll take someone off the table, or we're in tax loss selling, so there's things that happen like that. But overall, the theme, nothing changes when we hit into January as well. There's still the same problems that need to be corrected, need to be solved. There's still bricks kind of pulling apart. There's all sorts of narratives that are happening, and like you said, that we've been told for years that don't magically get fixed because
I think it'll be an easier year just to like live in the world. There'll be less like blatant stupidity. You won't have to email all your friends the latest absolutely insane thing that some politician did or said. That'll probably ratchet down, but they're still printing money like crazy,
Yes.
right? Nobody really is being responsible fiscally,
No.
personally or at the government level, right? Everybody still likes free stuff. Everybody still, you know, down for free stuff and a bit
Yeah.
lazy, and just everybody wants to take the path of least resistance. That's human nature.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. We're not coming out of like a war where, a bunch of people died and there's been a, shift in
No.
psyche. Nothing like that. So I think it's going to be great. For what I'm doing or what we're
Yes.
doing. And I'm very, very optimistic for 2025. I'm stoked. So bring it on. Christmas and New Year's, good time to recharge.
Yeah.
Forget about the markets for a little bit. Focus on what's really, really important at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Christmas, and not so much, penny stocks or mid caps or majors or the US dollar or Bitcoin or Sailor or whoever. Forget about it.
Great. And like I said, we're heading into a great season. January, February, we should be looking to see results from you guys, probably more than likely. And we're heading into VRIC and PDAC and all that kind of season as well. Is that kind of when you're hoping?
Yeah, well, we're really at the mercy of the
Yeah.
labs, and I would think we'll have a bunch of results in January and February for sure. Yeah, I maybe before, but I'm not super confident at this point. They're a little bit sporadic. They try their best. I mean, they're good people and they're
Yeah.
trying, but they're just getting slammed with results right now, and so we kind of leave them alone, and so yeah. Definitely January will be super busy for results around, and I'll be at the Metals Investor Forum with Chen Lin. I
Okay.
don't know if you know Chen. He's
Yeah.
awesome. He's got a really, really smart mind for just trading calls. So we're very, very fortunate to be able to be on his panel. So at the MIF,
Yes.
and great opportunity for investors or speculators to come down, grab a couple of beers, have a offline convo, whatever. It's a great forum at the Fairmont Pacific Rim. I think it's on the 17th and 18th of January or something
Yes,
like
that sounds
that.
right.
So
Yeah.
we'll be there, and hopefully we'll have some good news to talk about around then as well.
Perfect. Well, Simon, President, CEO, Director over at Aztec Minerals. Always great chatting with you. Always great to get the perspective. And that mix of inspirational, aspirational, pragmatic, and also charitable, and keeping things important. Family, life, opportunity, all of those wonderful things. It's great chatting with you.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Always a pleasure. I do appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day and week. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Take care. Bye-bye.